Okay, today I am going to introduce Illustrator and focus on one tool which is going to be really important to understand as we navigate Adobe Illustrator. So I have Illustrator open right now, and you can open your Illustrator and sorry, to create a new file, you'll navigate up to the upper left-hand menu and find the File menu. From here, you can create a new file. Notice in your menus on the right-hand side, you'll be given shortcut keys for many of the common options that you'll be using, and it's good practice to start memorizing these shortcut keys. So on a Mac, Command N will give you a new file. On a PC, that's most likely Control N, but you'll see the symbols here to help you out. So I'm going to create a new file, and for this exercise, it's really not going to matter what size your page is, but I'm going to use my Print tab in my new document dialog box, and I'll just set up a letter-sized page. On the right-hand side here, we will see the dimensions of that page setting, and you can see for this option I have points set up. Points are just another measurement, and we might talk about those a little bit more as we navigate through Illustrator, but you can see 612 points are the width of a letter size, so that would be 8.5 inches. 792 points is 11 inches. It's sort of complicated, but if you click where points are, you can change the measurement for your document. So pixels will be 1:1 in pixels. Points are how you think about, you may have been introduced to points before in typography or anytime you change the size of a font, right? 12-point font is pretty common. So if you think about that size of a letter, divide it by 12 and you have a point. So points are very small. There's 72 points in an inch. And then there are picas, and these are points and picas are typographic measurements. They're typically used for typography and layout. So picas are also a different kind of measurement. They're larger than a point, right? So you can see for 11 inches high, there's 66 picas, which if you use some math, that means there are 6 picas to an inch. But we're just gonna make this easy on ourselves today, and we're gonna change our measurements to inches. So let's just do that. And now we're gonna see some measurements that seem very familiar, 8.5 by 11. If you scroll down, you can also add things like bleed, which is a way to design your page so that actually there's some ink placed beyond the edge of the page. Bleed is usually when you're sending off to a printer and you want the ink to go all the way to the edge. And then you have color modes. CMYK is commonly what we would use for print. Raster effects, so if we ever used photographs in our Illustrator design, we could determine what resolution we want to be using. Okay, so 300 is considered a high PPI. And then preview mode, you can change that as well. So this is good. We probably won't be delving too much into all the details of this in this class, but just know that you do always want to kind of glance over here at the preset details and make sure the measurements or the units and dimensions and even the orientation are what you like. And we'll talk about adding more artboards in future demos. So I'm going to click Create, and I have my first document here. And what we'll be doing is just practicing the pen tool. Now, you may already be familiar with the pen tool because the pen tool is also available within Photoshop. So if you've taken Photoshop or worked in Photoshop and used vector masks or paths, then you are most likely already familiar with the pen tool. P is your shortcut key for the pen tool, P-E-N. And you can find it up here. I have the double column toolbar. If you want to change your toolbar, you can click on these little double arrows in the upper left. And if for some reason your toolbar looks really small, it may be that you have the default basic toolbar visible. You can find this under your window menu. Okay, so it's going to look kind of small. And I'd like for all of us to be working with the advanced toolbar. You get all of your options there. You can see all of your tools. So if you haven't already, go up to your window menu, select toolbars, and select advanced. Additionally, before we get started, let's talk about our workspace. So under my window menu, I'm going to change my workspace to essentials. And that way we're all working with the same space. Now, this newer version of Illustrator, when I select essentials, it doesn't show everything that I like. So what I'm going to do is also make sure that control is visible. Again, I'm working under my window menu right now in Adobe Illustrator. And if I select control, it's going to show my controls at the top of the workspace, which I prefer, perhaps because I'm older and I'm used to the old format. But know that controls are also going to most likely be available on the right side under our properties. Okay, so we'll talk about that. Okay, so P for pen tool. Oops, my toolbar just went back to basic for some reason. P for pen tool. And know that your pen tool in your toolbar, if you hold your cursor over it and press down, just hold your cursor down, you'll get a flyout menu that has other pen tool related tools here. So there's something called an add anchor point tool, a delete anchor point tool, and an anchor point tool. With that, just know that there are options here if you can't always remember the shortcut keys. All right. Now, the pen tool is an interesting tool. What it does is it creates shapes, vector shapes, and it's the way that you build unique vectors in Illustrator. So I like to introduce it early on. That doesn't mean that we're not going to use shapes in future tutorials. We will talk about shapes. We'll talk about shape building and icons and things like that. But I find that if you understand the pen tool, you understand all those other tools as well. Okay, so let's place an image here to help us. So I am going to navigate up to my file menu and select place. Okay. And I'm going to place my pen tool simple JPEG here. And it doesn't look like much. Oops. V will give you your move tool, so I'm just going to press V to move this JPEG around. Okay, and to set something in Illustrator, you just click outside of it into the blank artboard, and that will deselect it. So by default, when you place something, it's selected. You know it's selected because it has the corners and the X here. And then what I'll do is I will navigate to the right-hand side here. I'm seeing a Layers tab. I am going to click on that tab to bring it forward. And to make this a little bit easier for demonstration, I'm going to bring this Layers window out of this panel. So that's sort of free-floating. And so I can expand it here. The hamburger menu in the upper right-hand corner, also at the bottom, has panel options, and I like to select my panel options because I teach. So I like to make my panel options different. I'm going to make my row size much larger so you guys can see what's going on here. Okay, so I made it 80 pixels so you get a better thumbnail. You can see what we're working on. We're on layer 1, and this tiny arrow next to layer 1, if I click on it, we'll expand it so I can see what is on this layer. And here we have something called a linked file, which is the JPEG we just placed. Okay, so this looks pretty good. I am going to just click next to the eyeball to lock this layer in this kind of blank space here. That will lock it. So the layer 1 is locked so we don't accidentally edit it or move it around. And then I'll navigate to the lower right-hand corner where I see a plus sign in my layers window, and I am going to add a new layer by clicking on that plus sign, and this new layer is layer 2. We don't need to label these layers. right now. But as your designs get more complicated, you are going to want to label your layers, and when we get into groups, you'll want to label those as well. Okay, so when I add this new layer, notice in your layers window that it is highlighted in blue. That means that not only has a layer been created, it has been selected. And when a layer is selected in Illustrator, that means that you can draw on it or add to it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use our pen tool. P is the shortcut key, and we are going to draw with the pen tool. When I use my pen tool, I should take note of the swatches. At the bottom of my toolbar here, I have a white solid swatch here and a black, what we call like maybe an open swatch because it has a cutout in it. So the white is my fill, so the color that's going to fill in my shape. And this black swatch, if I click on it and bring it forward, is my stroke. Okay, so fill and stroke. So what you may want to do is just select a new color. Notice when I click on these, my color panel appears, and you can use the sliders, or you can just use your eyedropper and click on this rainbow at the bottom, this color swatch. It really doesn't matter what color you use. You just want a color that you can see. Okay, so I'll choose, let's choose something like purple. So I'll choose a color, and then I'll choose a different color for my stroke so you can see the difference. Okay, and now when I draw with my pen tool, I'm going to be creating shapes that have this pink fill and this green stroke. Yours can be whatever color you like. Okay, and I'm going to zoom in here. I'm just using my mouse pad and opening up to zoom in. You can also use the zoom tool. Z is your shortcut key. Command or Control plus or minus will zoom in. There's a lot of different ways to zoom in and out. Z can let you zoom in, but I luckily have a mouse pad, so I'm just zooming in here. Okay, so I'm going to close this color panel because I don't really need it. I'm going to bring my properties window forward just so we don't get confused by clicking on the tab here. And we're going to get started with this pen tool. All right, so the pen is going to create something called a path. Okay, now my pen tool right now has a star. That means we are starting a path, and you can start anywhere, but I'm just going to start on the star right here in this corner because the star is going to be the easiest shape we're going to make today. I'm going to click on this corner here one time. I'm not going to move my mouse. I'm just going to click once. And what that's going to do is it's going to set down an anchor point. And for me, that looks like a little square. Okay. And notice that it's red. It's red because my layer is red. See this little color stripe here? So if my layer was a different color, like blue, it would be blue. Okay, so the colors will change based on the layer you're on. And notice as I move my pen around, there's a line following me. So that's indicating what the path will be if I set my anchor point down right here. So I'm going to put the point of my pen tool at this next corner, click one time, and now I have a path that looks like a line. Okay, and that line is here too. So you're seeing the path both on your artboard, which is this space that we're drawing on, and you're seeing the path also on your layer too. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're just going to work our way clockwise around this star, and we're just clicking one time to set down anchor points. Okay, in every corner. And as I do this, you'll also notice as the shape is being constructed, the pink fill that I set is also appearing. So it's being filled in with that fill color swatch as we create this color. Okay, so you just follow the edge of the shape, setting down these anchor points until, this gets a little funny because you can't see the red with the pink fill, until you get to your original anchor point. You're going to look for this circle, which is indicating that you are about to close your path, hence the circle. Circles have no openings to their edge. So we're closing the path by clicking one time on this original anchor point. And closing the path means that now the path is fully closed and there are no open sides. Okay, so you always want to start a path with your star next to your pen tool, close a path with that loop or that circle to make sure that there are no open edges. Now, let's say you want to make changes to the star, like you put an anchor point in the wrong place or something. Don't worry. So I didn't edit my path while I was building it, right? Now, Command Z or Control Z will undo. You can always undo one step. So if you accidentally clicked and you want to undo, go up to your edit menu and use your undo pen, and you can see your shortcut key here. So for me, it's Command Z. So if that happened while you built your star, just know you can undo. But once you close your path, it's really easy to edit. Okay, now I'm gonna just use my direct selection tool, which is this white arrow at the top of my toolbar. A is your shortcut key. And I like to use that to edit. So what it will allow you to do is select an anchor point by clicking on it just one time. So one click will select, and then if you hold your mouse down and move, you can make edits or changes. Okay, same thing for the side of a path. If I take this direct selection tool and click on the side of a path, it will select that side, and then if I hold my mouse down and drag, I can move it around. So you can go around and make some changes, and you don't even have to drag. You can just click on an anchor point that's in the wrong place and also use your arrow keys on your keyboard to nudge it around. Okay, it's totally up to you, but you can make changes to this, okay? So edit it using your direct selection tool, all right? Now note, when I built my path, I just clicked, right? I'm just clicking one time. I'm not dragging my mouse. I'm not, because you're going to get something totally different. And I'm not drawing with it. I'm placing anchor points, one at a time with single clicks. Okay. So now if I expand layer 2 over here in my layers window, I can see I have this star-shaped path. Okay, so we're going to move on to a more complicated shape, the ellipse. And on the left side here, I'm going to start my path, and then I'll again work clockwise around and end at that original point. So again, I'm looking for that star next to my pen tool. Zoom in here a little bit. Looking at the star next to my pen tool, meaning I am starting a path. I'm going to hold my mouse down, holding my mouse, and drag straight up. Now, if you want it perfectly vertical, you can hold Shift as well while drawing this. Okay, that'll give you a locked vertical. So I'm holding my mouse, I haven't released my mouse, and I won't release my mouse until I see that this vertical, it's a handlebar, it's a Bezier handlebar. If I want it about 1/2 to 2/3 the height of my object that I'm about to build. Okay, so when I release my mouse, I should have a perfectly straight vertical handlebar extending outside of this middle point here, and this middle point is your anchor point. Okay, all right, and then I'm going to go to the top of this ellipse. Again, we're working clockwise, and I'm eyeballing the center. It doesn't have to be perfect. We will edit it at the end. Don't panic. We're only going to set down, I know it sounds crazy, but we're only setting down 4 anchor points. So we just set down our first one, and the first one has 2 handlebars extending from it. And now we're going to do the same thing here. So I'm holding my mouse down, dragging to the right, because we are moving in a clockwise motion around this elliptical shape. And again, you can make it as straight as possible. Now, what we're doing with the second anchor point is we are paying attention to the arc on the left side here and trying to get that as close as possible to our elliptical shape. It won't be perfect, but really, like I tell people, you want it to kind of hug the edge or kiss the edge near the anchor point you're working with. Okay, and again, you can hold Shift if you want a perfectly horizontal handlebar, but again, I have not released my mouse. I'm holding my mouse down. I'm sort of driving with both hands. Okay, release my mouse, and then you can see it's starting to build a shape here, and we're seeing our shape fill as we build this. Okay, we'll go to the right-hand side here. Again, eyeballing the center. I'm gonna hold my mouse down and drag straight down. Again, trying to get this handlebar to get the arc. The handlebar's directing the arc, if you want to think of it that way. It's kind of like, if you know anything about torque, it's kind of like torque. It's like, the handlebars are giving the path a direction and a trajectory, like a trajectory with strength, right? So the longer the handlebar, the more it pulls. You can see that path being pulled away. The shorter, the less it pulls, and the direction is where the path goes. See that? Okay, so I just say go slowly when you're learning the pen tool so you get a feel for it, because it's going to become very intuitive as you practice, as long as you don't panic. Notice how slow I'm moving. I have not released my mouse yet. I'm holding my mouse straight down. I can move it left and right, but I'm not releasing it until I'm happy with this arc that I'm paying attention to. Release my mouse. That looks pretty darn good. Again, moving clockwise, so we're at the bottom of the ellipse. Hold my mouse down, drag to the left, get that arc right here. Oh gosh, that looks so good. See how moving just slowly, moving to the left. Okay, if you go to the right, you're gonna see a twist. Okay, so anytime you see a weird twist like this, that means you're in the wrong direction. Okay, just watch that arc, try to get as close as possible to the edge. Release your mouse. Beautiful. And then navigate to this first anchor point. Look for that circle indicating you're about to close the path. Hold your mouse down and drag straight up. Okay? And that is an elliptical path. Now, you would use this strategy also for anything close to a circle. Now, we also have tools that will build shapes like this, but again, this is teaching you a little bit about how the arc in a path can be created. And so we've just closed this path, and if we want to edit it, again, you can use this direct selection tool. Click on any anchor point that you want to move it around. You can also, now that we have these handlebars, which we did not have on the star, so if you don't hold your mouse down, you're going to lose your handlebars. You always want to hold the mouse and drag. Now, I can address these, okay? I can move these around. I can use my arrow keys to nudge. I can even drag these handlebars to address the arc, okay? So you can use this direct selection tool. If for some reason you accidentally added too many points, you can also take the delete anchor point tool and delete an anchor point. Now, if I delete this one, watch what happens, okay? So if you delete something and it goes wonky, just know you can add an anchor point too, and using that add anchor point tool here, and then use your direct selection tool to move it. Remember, the pen tool doesn't edit, so you're not going to be using the pen tool to move anchor points around or address your handlebars. You'll use your selection tools for that. The pen tool only creates anchor points and handlebars. That's what it does. So just an FYI. So you can always stop this video and practice. If you're struggling with this ellipse, just practice watching it again. Okay, and now onto a much more complicated shape, which is a heart. And this one has points, but it also has arcs, like what we just did with the ellipse. So you can start, again, anywhere on a shape, but you're trying to identify important places where the path that outlines the shape kind of shifts in direction, is how I like to think about it. So you're gonna, if you want to pre-visualize, you're gonna end up having anchor points where these points are on the heart. You're gonna want anchor points, you're gonna want anchor points also maybe where the change in direction from like top to bottom or left to right is happening on these sort of humps of the arc. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the right hand side here. Maybe, yeah, there's so many places to start. I'm going to start right here. Right kind of where the right side, it's like kind of the furthest to the right where this arc is on the right side of my heart. And again, I'm going to work clockwise just so we can all kind of do it the same way. So I have my star, so I'm starting a path. Hold my mouse down because I'm dealing with arcs, and I'm setting up these Bezier handles. Now, this is where it's a little tricky because we don't have a lot of experience with the pen tool yet necessarily, and so we just want these handlebars to kiss the edge, okay? And if they're not perfect, it's okay, we will edit them later, okay? So just kiss the edge of the shape, and then as I navigate down to this next point, I am going to hold my mouse down and drag to the left, and this is a longer arc. Okay, so notice my handlebars are going to be longer than the original handlebars I set on that first point. Okay, again, having these handlebars kiss that edge, that looks great. Release my mouse. Now this is a new process. So we're about to create a point that has arcs around it. So we're going to create a point with our Bezier handlebars, and we're going to use a tool called, oops, sorry. I don't know. Oh, I see. Called our convert point tool. Now you can find that in your toolbar. It's an anchor point. I'm sorry. Convert point is what it's called in Photoshop. Here it's called just the anchor point tool. There's a shortcut key, Shift C. Okay. Now we don't have to use that shortcut key. Oh, I don't know why it just did that. I think I must have accidentally clicked on my mouse pad. Sorry. If you accidentally do that, you end up off your path or something, just Command Z and go backwards. It's okay. It's okay. Command Z, you're only one anchor point behind. It's not a big deal. So to convert this from a rounded arc to a point, what we're going to do with our pen tool still selected is we are simply going to hold down Option. I'm on a Mac, so I'm holding down Option. Now, if you're on a PC, the shortcut key should be Alt. Okay. Yeah, Option Alt. Okay, so Option, and then I get that upside down V, and what I can do then is I'm holding Option while using my cursor or my mouse, so I'm driving with both hands. So Option, and then release my mouse before I release my shortcut key. So it's really important that you release your mouse before releasing the shortcut key. Okay, so I'm going to Command Z to go backwards to show this again. So I'm Option to get my convert point tool, Alt if you're on a PC. So I'm holding my shortcut key right now, and now I'm going to hold my cursor or my mouse down to redirect, driving with both hands. Okay, and then I want to release my mouse or cursor before I release the shortcut. Okay, and I set this handlebar up so that it kisses the edge. Now, if it's not perfect, don't worry. Again, we're going to go back and edit the path at the end. It's really so much easier to just edit afterwards. You just get it up basically into the shape you want, and then you can edit it later. All right, again, we're going to navigate up to the left side here, kind of find the furthest point on the left side, hold your mouse down and drag up, release your mouse, okay, navigate to the top of this hump here, and notice, so I will just use a vocabulary term, the handlebars here are locked. So that's why when you build them, the handlebars are following each other, so they're always like in a straight line, okay? And you want that to get in order to get a nice smooth arc. Anytime handlebars are not locked, right? See how they're locked in place? They're following each other, they're locked together. Anytime they're not locked together, you get a point, like what we got here at the bottom of the heart, okay? So just know that that's the case, okay? I just Command Z it, by the way, I just undid so that. know that that's the case. And see, this is a problem with the fill, is I can't always see a shape if there's indentations and things like that, but that's okay. We'll just fake it. Okay, so I'm just gonna fake this one, set a point down. It's good enough. You can nudge your points if you want to by using your left, right, up, down arrows. And then using your pen tool, you can just grab that anchor point by holding down again. Okay, now I'm so sorry, the red and the pink are not good. I won't do that next time I do a tutorial. Then I'm gonna use my convert or my anchor point tool again. I'm using Option, Alt on a PC, and I'm having this little handlebar kiss the edge of the next hump. And again, that's redirecting our path. So remember, these handlebars are just telling the path which direction to go. Okay, and then I'll navigate to the next hump, hold my mouse down and drag to the right. Again, we're just always moving clockwise around the shape where we are back at our original point. Look for that circle to close the path, hold our mouse down and release. Okay, now if you want to edit this, A for your direct selection tool, and then of course you can select the side if you want to move the side by clicking, just click it one time and then drag. Okay, so I can click and drag. Same with the anchor points. You click once and you know your anchor point selected because it goes from being white to being a solid fill. Okay, it's kind of subtle here because of the pink, but click on the anchor point one time, you know it's selected. You can even select multiple by sort of dragging over an area, and then you can move multiple things around. Okay, so you can make edits. And remember, you can always delete and then re-add anchor points as well using your add anchor point or delete anchor point tool. Okay, and oops, I clicked on something. And then under layer 2, you can see these paths are all individual, what we call objects in Illustrator. So they each have their own object here. And in the layers window, you can select each object by clicking next to the meatball. So if you click to the right of the meatball, you can actually select an entire object here using layers, as opposed to over here using your regular selection tool, which is V. Okay, and you can click on these. And so selection tools, just like in Photoshop, you click on the object and then you can move it around. Okay, so selection tools are really to move things. The direct selection will allow you to directly select portions of an object or of a path so that you can edit those directly is really what it is. Where this black arrow, the selection tool, the move tool, will select entire objects or groups that you can move around or scale if you want to. Okay, so I think that's a great exercise to just practice getting used to the pen tool. And I say this because Illustrator is a vector-based program, which means it's always dealing with paths and shapes rather than resolution. And so every single object every tool that we work with is really working with paths. So the sooner you understand how to build the paths and how paths sort of the mechanics of it, the better off you'll be as we move into all the other tools. Okay, now this is just a practice exercise. So if you already know pen tools, you know, you don't have to submit for this. It's not going to count against you. It's one of those that will count for towards your points, but won't count against you if you already understand the pen tool. So I hope this helps. You can always come back here and do more practice and use that JPEG just to help you as a guide. But let's save this if you want to submit it. And I always save as a, for Illustrator, we can save as a PDF. Okay, so save as, and then always your last name, first name, so I can give you credit if it's really great, and then the week. So we're in week 1, and we can call this exercise 1. Okay, and I can save it wherever you want to save it. I have lots of documents. Okay, so you can save it. Make sure you know where you saved it. And for PDF, it's fine. Just save it as a PDF. And then upload it in Canvas.